Today my guest is Martin Sulte, CEO Mintos. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
First of all, what is Mintos and who can invest?
Sure. So Mintos is a fintech player. So we are a global marketplace for loans. And what it involves is a two-sided marketplace. On one side, you will have investors. And on the other side, you're going to have lending companies which are using the marketplace to fund the loans they originate to the borrowers. To make it short, basically, as a marketplace, we are connecting investors and the borrowers. When we talk about the investors, so it's predominantly retail investors. So anyone, as long as they have reached 18 years of age, can invest on Mintos.
Can companies invest? How safe are investments?
So also companies can invest. So you can create either individual account or a company account to start investing on the Mintos. And today we have in total 53,000 investors coming from 60 plus different countries all across the globe. And many of them also, like individuals, are using their companies to invest the money which are sitting unused on their balance sheets, and they are investing in loans, and thus actually providing the capital to those who need the capital at this very moment.
Mintos is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace that connects investors with borrowers. Could you tell me more important details for investors?
Yes, I think the important distinction here is actually that we try to differentiate from like P2P lending and what we do. So we are marketplace for loans, whereas a P2P lender would be the company or the platform which connects, like where the borrowers come to the platform and they connect them to investors. In our case, actually, as a marketplace for loans, you can think of us more as like Amazon, for instance. But these days on Amazon, we're not anymore buying from Amazon, right? So in many cases, we are actually buying from third-party merchants, be it like a book or I don't know, like a blender or something. Those manufacturers, they use Amazon to sell the goods on Amazon. Similar with Mintos, actually. So on Mintos, instead of the buyers, we do have investors. And instead of the third-party merchants, we do have a loan originators, like non-bank financial institutions, who are originating the loans, and the loans they originate, they place on the marketplace and sell to investors. And in that way, we have connected the investor with the final borrower. And when the borrower makes a repayment, then this repayment of the loan goes through the loan originator, through us, and reaches investor. So at the end of the day, what we've done is actually facilitated much better movement of capital. And with the help of technology, as a fintech player, with the help of technology, we actually have made this process of capital flow so much easier. With a few clicks, you can invest in so many different loans.
Okay, but what is the main purpose of the company in Poland?
Yes. So the main thing what we are doing is really moving the capital around. So if you can imagine, it's a very cross-border transactions takes a lot of place on the Mintos marketplace. We work globally, so there's investors coming from 60 plus different countries, where the loan supply comes from 20 plus different countries, including the Poland. So say in Poland, what we are looking for is both for investors and for the lending companies which would want to use our solution. And the purpose is obviously to connect the investors and the borrowers, so that the investors have another way to invest. They have another asset class to invest in, where there's borrowers through the loan originators, of course, they get access to usually capital per se, because in many cases they actually don't have access to credit, or they get it cheaper, more conveniently, and in faster manner than through traditional financial institutions such as banks.
Mintos is growing startup, so what do you think about development of the fintech sector in Poland or Europe?
Sure. So we started 3 years ago. So far, through our marketplace, investors have funded already more than 570 million euros of loans, which is about 2.4 billion of zloty in 3 years' time. So we've been growing very fast. Today we do have offices in Riga, we do have offices in Warsaw, and also we have a small office in Mexico, and now we're building out in Brazil and in Russia as well. When we think about the fintech, in general, I think the fintech is it's a very big word used a lot these days, but to be honest, it actually has a lot of impact as well on how we go about our business. And we see fintech, be it here in Poland, like not only in lending, like fintech is a big word, it's not only lending. We see in lending, say, some of the loan originators which also use our marketplace, we would describe them as fintech players. Say the InviPay, which is doing invoice financing, they use a lot of like technology to actually do it in a very convenient, fast and flexible way for the final borrowers. But then you can talk about other verticals of fintech, be it digital banks. We see so many of them, all the names we hear over and over again, like Revolut's number 26, like a lot of them in the UK. Then we hear a lot also about the asset management. So there are many different verticals where the fintech is developing, and it's just a matter of time before fintech takes most of the services which have been provided by banks and make them more user-friendly, more customer-friendly, and in many cases also cheaper than what we have experienced so far.
Mm-hmm. And what is the Mintos business model?
At Mintos, where we make money from those non-bank financial institutions, which we call loan originators, those who are lending money to the final borrowers. So we charge them for the loans which they have actually funded through us. So we take a small cut there. So you can think of us as again, similar to the same example I mentioned, like on Amazon. Amazon makes money in many cases actually from those third-party merchants charging a fee for using their marketplace. So we have a similar business model.
And what is your company difference from others company in Poland?
I think the difference is really that our business model is very unique. So far we have not seen any meaningful competition. We've seen a few copycats which try to do the same what we do, but it requires quite a bit of scale to get to a certain stage. So also for us to grow from zero to where we are today has been, initially there's a lot of chicken and egg problem. So you do have investors, but then where do you get loan supply? You cannot go to the investors and say, come to my marketplace, but there's like empty shelves, right? And likewise, you cannot go to your loan originator and say, hey, place your loans on our marketplace, but we don't have investors. So there's a lot of like chicken and egg problem. Once you connect to the loan originators, it's basically not much incentive for any other marketplace to do similar stuff what we do. So there's been limited competition so far, and our business model is unique in Poland, in Europe, and I would say globally we have not seen many similar companies to ours.
And what are the three main advantages for investors?
For investors, I think that there are many advantages. I think the main advantage what we offer is diversification. So diversification meaning that investors with a few clicks or using our automated tools, they can build a portfolio of loans to themselves. And the loans are fractionalized. So you can invest from as low as 50 zloty per loan. So with just a few hundred or a few thousand zloty, you can actually build already quite diversified investment portfolio, be it loan to the small business in, say, Colombia, be it consumer here in Poland, or be it like invoice financing in Georgia. So there's like many opportunities. So diversification is number one. Number two is that the investors have full control. So they actually go, they see all the loans by loan basis, so they can pick and choose each and every loan. And they see all the underlying borrowers, how they are making payments. So this transparency and full control is number two, what I would say. And number three, we make it very simple. So with a few clicks or using automated tools, you can actually invest in asset class in loans which were not previously available. To make an example, say somebody sitting in Poland would want to invest in, say, a loan which is originated in Botswana. It takes you a few clicks and you've invested, and then the borrower, when they make repayments, you get the money and plus interest back on your capital. So those would be three, I would say, the diversification, the full transparency and control, and then the ease of using our marketplace. On top of that, it would be the great risk-adjusted returns what investors are receiving. These days, it's about 11 to 12% after defaults, after fees, and before tax. And we would consider that a great risk-adjusted return for investors what they receive.
Okay, but what happens if you go bankrupt?
Yeah, so for that, obviously, one big thing, especially when you think about the building what we build, is all the contingency plans. So what would happen if we would go out of business? As the investor still has investor has a direct claim toward the borrower. So the main question is how you maintain that the borrowers, when they make a repayment, they actually reach investor. So for that, we have created backup plans, which means that, for instance, if the loan originator would go out of business, we would take over the servicing of the loan, or more like a third party would take it over and continue channeling those repayments to investors. If we as a marketplace would go out of business, then that could be the loan originator taking over the transferring and distribution to investors. So it depends on the country also how it's set up, all the contingency plans.
How do you see competition in Poland and in the other markets you have started to operate in?
There's limited direct competition to what we do, but there's plenty of indirect competition. So we compete for investors with the same typical P2P lending platforms. In general, I would still describe that these days, if we think about the game we are playing, we are actually in the game of non-bank lending or alternative lending against the bank lending. And in general, what we see, the tonic shift in general is that there's more and more non-bank lending happening in different verticals, be it in consumer loans, be it in small business loans. We see more and more in invoice financing. We also see even in mortgage loans, where there's other ways where you can get your money for your needs.
Where do you see Mintos in the future, and what are your plans?
So we are building a global marketplace for loans. So that's our vision, and we are taking the steps toward that. So already today we work with investors from 60 plus countries. We have loan originators from 20 plus countries, anything from Latin America, Mexico, Colombia, up to Europe, Spain, UK, Baltics, Poland, of course, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and also we have something in Africa. So what we are trying to achieve is actually to facilitate a better movement of capital. These days we see that the capital is sitting somewhere, and then there are pockets where the capital is not available or is very hard to come by. So with the help of technology, as a fintech player, we can actually make this better, and we can connect the capital so much easier. And this is what we are doing now, and the vision going forward is to do it on a bigger scale.
Thank you for the interview. Today my guest was Martin Sulte, CEO Mintos. Thank you very much.